Hey everyone, we are going to be starting the webinar shortly. Just giving people a chance to join. Oh, I probably should turn on my camera too. Here we go. Now I can see myself. I'm going to go off camera just for a couple of minutes. For those of you who are just joining us, we will start the webinar in a couple of minutes. And Ahmed is here as well. Look at that. I just need to be on camera too. Ah. Ahmed, how are you doing?
Hello,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly now.
Perfect. Always. It's funny because I had a friend who told me, all these companies set up webinars and then they struggle with the registration and the right links. And I'm like, yes, I know it. Every time we do a webinar, there is an issue with the right link, going to the right person. So people are trickling in. We already are 3 minutes behind. So just give me a second. Let me make sure that we are recording because let's see. And let me just start also local recording. For those of you guys who are ever do webinars, by the way, Zoom is really great, but the quality of the recording is not that good. So we always do a local recording just to make sure that the quality is really good. So with that, we're going to jump in. People are joining. Ahmed, thank you for hopping. We have a really interesting topic. So we work in conversion rates all the time, but conversion rate for returning visitors is a whole other ball game. With that, I have Ahmed with me. Ahmed, give us a little bit instead of me. So, it's funny because I was on a panel and they're introducing a whole bunch of people. And then well, this next speaker, including me, they're like, oh, Khaled doesn't need introduction. I'm like, dude, very few people know me anyways. So just introduce me. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about you?
Hey guys, thanks Khaled for hosting me here. So basically, I'm Ahmed Khairi. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of a company called Gameball. So basically, what we do is Gameball is basically a loyalty CRM that enables brands to create meaningful and relatable experiences with their customers with the goal of retaining them and making sure that brands are efficiently monetizing their customer base. So with Gameball, brands basically create meaningful and beautiful experiences, and they make sure that their customers transform from being one-time shoppers to repeat customers who just can't stop coming back again.
I love it. I love it. And we've all been there, correct? Where I never knew this site before. Oh, I am in love with this site and I'm going back to it again and again. So you guys do that. You make us spend more money.
We're the evil people who make you spend more money.
It's
But
funny
actually,
because
yeah. So we also add value to the shopper because and error accounts with Gameball, you start getting those that really matter to you as a shopper. So it's not just adding value to the merchants, but also to the customers, because now the promotions and discounts are relevant to what you are looking for.
Yeah. So that's the part that I was gonna say. I think more money in kind of in your account as a retailer starts with a better user experience. I mean, you can do some silly short-term things, but those will backfire. If you're looking at a long-term strategy, it will start with a happy shopper. You're not going to trick somebody. You can trick somebody into a one-time purchase, but consistently, coming back to the site, no. That really requires thinking about that customer experience. So before we jump into tactical things, how did the idea of Gameball come about? And are you guys focused, by the way, on e-commerce?
Actually, we started off focusing on e-commerce, but now we expanded our offerings to retailers and to fintech businesses as well. So basically, transactional businesses. So how did this start off? My partner Ahmed Al-Asi, he used to be the head of products at a company that shipped loyalty solutions to top enterprise customers in the Middle East. And at that time, we always had these discussions running about customer retention and customer loyalty. You cannot gain them by offering vouchers and coupons. This is not really how you build long-term brand loyalty. You need to go in depth when it comes to customer experience and the personalization that brands establish with their customers. This is how you actually build brand loyalty. And when we looked around, we didn't really find suitable frameworks for brands to actually create those kind of experiences. And we thought technology should be solving that issue. So we basically started building Gameball to be the platform that uses technology to help brands use data and customer behavior analytics to basically tailor and create meaningful and relatable experiences to their customers. And we believe that this is how you actually build long-term brand loyalty.
I love that. So let me ask the audience this question. You can use, by the way, the chat feature to answer. Let's get you guys a little bit involved. So most websites should be looking at some metrics, and I'd assume visitors and conversion rate are kind of top metrics, KPIs, maybe metrics. That's a whole other debate, the difference between those two. But you report on those. But a question to the audience, how frequently do you break those down? And at the very top level, how frequently do you break them down by device, so mobile versus desktop? And how frequently do you break them down by new visitor versus returning visitor? How often do you report on that? It's funny because we do conversion rate optimization, and one of the very first things that people hear from me whenever, even during like whenever they're thinking about engaging us, is like, are you going to improve our conversion rate? And I tell them, well, first thing we do is we're going to forget this word conversion rate. And like, what? I tell them, well, first, here's what we're going to do. We are going to start talking about mobile conversion rate and desktop conversion rate. So you're going to forget about the overall site conversion rates. So they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Let's figure those out. And I'm like, well, no, there's a second level that you need to break it down to. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, new versus returning, because that's a whole other, ball game. So with you guys, I'm a retailer, and I mentioned retailer just because 99% of the companies we work with are retailers. So, I don't think we've ever worked with a company in fintech. We did work with SaaS, but I come to you, Ahmed, and I say, okay, how are you going to help me away from just purely doing the coupons and the discounts? What are you looking at? What are you thinking? What's the strategy there overall, before going to the tactics?
So the problem with marketers nowadays is that they concentrate their marketing budgets into acquisition. So they spend the entire budgets on ads, trying to acquire people and bring people to your front door. But what happens inside your store is what really matters. And this is where you actually make money. The problem is that most of the budget goes to acquiring customers, people who don't know your brand, who don't know who you are. And when they come into the store, this is where you can actually convert them. And this is where most marketers miss out. So they forget that actually the customer experience that they get and how you sort the products, how you show the products in front of people. And this is actually how you convert people into paying customers. And it's not just by bringing them to your front door. So we start to shift that paradigm. We work with them basically first to shift their paradigm into focusing on retaining your own customer base. You can make a lot of money from your own customers, those who already know you and bought once from you, because the likelihood of those people coming again and buying again from you is much higher than the likelihood of someone you brought in through through a random ad to buy you as a one-time shopper. So the first thing we do is that we try to shift that paradigm with the people who we work with. And then the second thing is drafting the strategies. So basically, we try to help them analyze their customer behavior, what they like, what they don't like, and we help them start segmenting their customers. So you shouldn't be treating your customers equally. Males are not like females. Teenagers, Gen Z are not like old people. And you need to have different strategies for different segments, and you need to communicate differently with them, because each segment has its own set of expectations, has its own set of things that they are looking for, preferences, and so on. So you need to communicate differently. You need to build different promotions, package the products in different ways, and show things basically differently. So basically, we start guiding them on how to do that using Gameball, and we work together after that to enhance the program. So it's not just a one-time thing. You need to have this ongoing process of auditing and reviewing if this is actually working and making you money or not. And if it's not, you need to get back again and tune it again, right?
So in theory, completely agree with you. Okay, like, males versus females, men versus women shop differently. I shop a lot differently than my daughter and son, given the age difference. But let's talk kind of practically. I'm like, okay, so yeah, I need to figure out, the way you market to Khalid is a lot different than the way you market to Maria, two completely, like, she's 16.
Yeah.
Khalid is like, near 50. I feel so old saying that, but okay. How do you actually practically, it's like, okay, yeah, here's the messaging. Let's say figure out the messaging, how are you able to identify this visitor is within this group? And then how do you actually manage the messaging or whatever changes you want to make on the website?
So this is actually the beauty of technology, because today it's very easy to track your customer behavior, right? With all the pixels, all the cookies that keep tracks you online as you do activities. So we use this for good. We use this to actually create better experiences. So using pixels, cookies, and so on, we start tracking how customers behave inside your store, what they are actually interested in, what they are looking for, what kind of products they add to cart, what kind of product they keep on purchasing more and more. And we start hammering down on this kind of insights. So we give those insights to the brands, and then we tell them recommendations. Hey, this guy is probably just bought a laptop. They might be interested in maybe a laptop bag. So why not send them a message telling them we have a laptop bag that fits the product you just bought yesterday? So we keep on helping brands create those kind of experiences using data. So it all starts by tracking and recording data in a proper way, and in a way that gives true insights, not just rough figures, not just figures.
So we're using, in this case, at least in the example that you gave, you're using shopper behavior. Is it strictly conversion behavior on the website, or are you just using also like, their browsing, like, what products they looked at and whatnot to kind of identify, well, they might be interested in this or they're interested in that?
No, we can collect as many data as possible. So it depends actually on the client, or the customer himself, like what kind of data they can provide to Gameball. So if we can check all the browsing history and the kind of behavior they do in store before conversion, this would actually be very beneficial. But sometimes, for example, in retails, it's hard to identify the patterns inside retail brick and mortar before they do with the purchase. So in this case, we try to do some estimates based on the transaction history. So we use the transaction history to try to profile this customer into something that's almost like a segment that we are familiar with, and thus the brand can help engage them better.
And are there particular segments that you're typically looking for, or is it based on the shopping behavior? How do you actually go about creating the segments?
So Gameball as a technology, we provide the technology, but the segments that make sense should be up to the brand to decide. Like an apparel brand is different from an electronics store. So this would have very different segments setup from the other one. So give them the technology to guide them how to build the segments. It's all dynamic. They just need to set some rules. So for example, I'm gonna set a rule that says when someone buys more than 3 times in a month, this is a repeat customers. This is a repeat customer, and so on. So this segment is VIP customers because they bought those very selected niche products that usually only VIP people purchase. And these set of products are for females, so I can assume that the person is a female, and so on. So it depends really on the business and the kind of products they sell.
Okay, very nice. Now, so I create, okay, so there's shopping behavior that helps me identify people into different segments. Okay, they're interested in this, they're interested in that. They bought a particular product, so I can complement this product. And I think that, by the way, this is very, very powerful where, hey, you purchase something, kind of understanding, okay, the next progression, this is what you're going to do. So I live in Chicago and I needed home service. And I'm like, okay, well, first I need the painting. So I go online, I search, there's Angie's List, Angie, that's what they call it now. Searching for painters and so they make some recommendations and I end up picking somebody. What was fascinating to me, and it was like almost up to the date, about 2 weeks later, I'm starting to work on electrical things around the house. And I get an email from Angie telling me, oh, working on an electrical project. And I'm like, dude, okay, so this is a little interesting. So that's fine. And then now, and I'm guessing, I'm not sure how they figured this out. Might have been just luck. But then, given the time of year and whatnot, now I have some landscaping projects. And again, their email again. And I'm like, wow, there's some really good marketer who's sitting there who had figured out exactly what I need. And at some point I'm like, God, man, like, and I'm spending more money, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, this saves me time. So I can do these webinars. So it's just fascinating understanding visitor behavior and mapping it out. Do you guys take into account, or do you think, like, taking into account kind of like that timeline and that customer journey and planning it out? Is there a software piece there that plays into that, or is it like a marketer, smart marketer saying, okay, well, here's really the kind of the sequence or the cadence that we need, that a person would follow?
So there's also a human being operating the software, right? So at some point, you still need to be smart to operate this kind of software. Think of it as Google Ads or Facebook Ads. The software is really smart, but if you're not good with running ads, you're not going to get results. So at some point, you still need to have some smart, clever people to operate Gameball. What we do from our side is that we give them some insights and recommendations, and we educate them. So basically, we have this education center where we basically give them tips and tricks all the time. We give them free webinars, free education materials. So basically, to help them create those kind of experiences. But it needs to always start from the brand itself. If you don't want to, you are the one who knows your business, and you understand your customers better, right? We try to automate things using AI, machine learning, but at the end of the day, a human being is still needed to operate the thing efficiently.
Yes, it's funny. So we in FigPie, we have a feature that basically analyzes visitor behavior. It looks at visitors who converted and their behavior, like, around the website. And then it says, okay, well, you have 100,000 visitors who came to your website. Of those, there's 2,000 who converted. Now, there's a specific pattern that they follow. So if you think about this, everybody who converted would have clicked on an add to cart and went through the checkout. Okay, there's nothing novel about this. Everybody goes through that. However, what gets interesting when you look at the data of those 2,000 people who converted, and you notice that they've actually browsed more pictures, or they've highlighted certain text on the page, or they read more reviews, and we're like, oh, this is interesting. Now, away from the standard behavior that everybody goes through, those 2,000 people have had this behavior, and then you can use that machine learning to say, okay, so what is kind of the best data set that I can use based on visitor behavior to say, listen, if you can get more people to click on pictures, if you can get more people to click on, let's say, testimonials, even lower, like 3-star testimonials, we see that people who read those have a higher chance to convert versus people who click and read everything. Then use that to give a recommendation. The funny part is, when we first started running the algorithm, we're like, oh, this is great. But then you start looking at some of the recommendations, and I'm like, dude, okay, algorithms are really great. Machine learning is really great. But some of the recommendations are just, I'm like, okay, this is embarrassing. Now the algorithm continues to improve. That's the whole point of machine learning, because you have you have an initial data set, and you're like comparing the results, but you always have to have that smart human who operates it. The best example that I give to people, I'm like, okay, I used to be a software guy, and you can buy like an Oracle database that will cost you a few $100,000, sometimes millions of dollars. But you give that to somebody who doesn't know, and it'll be like, you're better off not even using that piece of software. So the smart human who knows how to operate the software, I mean, maybe that's kind of at the core of this, because, and let me ask you this, Ahmed, because there's always this question about AI versus marketers. I got asked that question. We do a weekly meeting with our CROs and our team, and somebody's like, hey, are we going to be replaced by AI? What do you think? I mean, I think you've sort of answered the question, but.
Well, not anytime soon, at least. So we keep facing those issues all the time. We don't have 100% AI yet, and we kind of postponed this step because we are 100% sure that the results are sometimes going to be very ridiculous. So no, we're not going to do this until we're 100% sure that this is going to give you things that make sense, basically logical answers. So if we are not going to give you logical recommendations, then no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to claim we do AI if we're not just because the investors maybe, but no. So yes, I agree with you. It's not anytime soon that AI would replace human beings, at least when it comes to marketing. It's not something replaceable at this stage. No, we're not ready for it.
That makes sense. What's fascinating to me is a couple of the companies that we work with, they use this piece of amazing AI software, and I don't use the word AI lightly, because lots of times people throw it around and I'm like, oh, not even remotely close to AI. But it's intelligent enough. So on their product pages, they will show you a whole bunch of products. They'll show you a whole bunch of Instagram photos of people using those products. Okay, very simple. So you see maybe 9 different models who are basically on their Instagram feed, and they've actually contracted those Instagram models. Well, as you start clicking, if you make 3 clicks and they can figure out your behavior, they can actually, based on those models and what they wear, they can start actually building a personal profile for you. And they can actually match what you like up to 85% accuracy, which is really fascinating, where they can tell you that 85% of the population actually wears the same thing. It's like you fit within a certain group, and then there's 15% that just tries to be different, but they also fit within the 15% who want to look different. So they look at and based on what you look at in Instagram, they can use AI to figure this out. And even more fascinating, where they can take Instagram photos and they can actually help purchasers and different retailers to figure out, okay, here's the trend in the next 6 months. And they can predict that trend with almost 95% accuracy. So they're working with a retailer in France, and they're like, this kind of cut for women with a yellow color is going to be in the next 6 months. And I'm part of the call, and the guy's like, dude, no one would wear this. This is just, I don't know how your machine is wrong. Well, 2 months later, the same guy emailed. He's like, I cannot believe this. This is actually in right now. How did you figure it out? I'm like, I didn't figure it out. The AI, this other company figured it out. So it's just fascinating.
I coded it.
Yeah. So humans, I mean, there's so many data points that we drop that sometimes we don't think about as humans. When somebody comes in and implements all these strategies away from, okay, well, I'm going to give them coupons, I'm going to give them discounts. How else I'm increasing the retention of those visitors? What are the actual implementation? Okay, I figured out the segment. I am targeting the segments. I know what they like. What do we do?
So now comes the role of communicating. Whatever you've been doing in the background, you need to put that in front of your customers in a nice customer interface, right? So we do that at Gameball through gamification. So we build gamified experiences and we embed all those configurations within this gamified experience. So when you want to, if you want your customers to buy this product 3 times a week, for example, you turn that into a challenge or a mission, something that your customer needs to do, so that they would get the badge of shopping maniac, or maybe fashionista, the badge. And this badge gives a nice feeling, gives you a nice feeling of accomplishment. You receive this pop-up, congratulations, you earned this badge, or you're one of the 10 people who have this badge in between 2,000 customers. This kind of recognition feeds the customer ego and make sure that they are actually feeling good about doing this. So whatever configurations you do in the back end, you need to put that in front of your customers in a nice experience, so that they would actually engage with your configurations. And this is what we do through proper communications and gamification.
Very cool. So we got a couple of questions, and I think let's and maybe we should have started with one of them, actually. So I'm going to take the second question over here. What kind of behavioral differences exist between new versus returning visitors? What do we see kind of the difference there? So Ahmed, I'll throw the question to you, and then I'll throw a few thoughts on that. It's kind of what do we see between the two?
So returning visitors convert faster, convert better, because they actually know what they want. They know the brand, they've been there before, they know where to get things and how the process goes. So they probably convert faster. Also, one of the things that we've been seeing is that returning customers tend to buy more in terms of basket size. So if a one-time shopper purchases, adds a $15 product in a cart, someone who's a returning customer would add more than that, because they trust the brand. It's more likely for them to buy more things. Also, the referral thing is a very important aspect. Returning customers tend to refer the brand to their friends and family, because they've tried it before and they've seen the experience. And if they like it, they would refer the friends to it. One-time shoppers won't do that.
Yeah. So one of the things I'll just mention, kind of piggyback on what Ahmed said. So one of the first things that you see, one of the biggest battles that any site has, regardless whether you're a retailer or SaaS or fintech, or is the brand battle. If I don't trust you, I will struggle to give out my credit card. And of course, this also will depend to a good extent on your average order value, correct? If I'm purchasing something from you for like, $5, $10, okay, no big deal. But the higher the average order value, the more the brand matters. So we're working with a company. Their conversion rate is around 1%. E-commerce, average order value about $1,500. So it's it's a considered purchase. And he was asking me, they've been around for 8 months. So it's impressive with how looking at that they built a clientele and people coming and shopping and actually willing to spend out $1,500 because they're also in a very competitive market space. And he's asking me, well, what can we do in terms of increasing conversion rates? Because we're doing this when it comes to ad, we're doing this in terms of SEO and doing this in terms of social. And now we want to focus on improving our conversion rates. And one of the things I told him, whether you focus on conversion rates or not, I'd like you to, but naturally, as more and more people become aware of the brand and they get to know you and they see you more often, guess what? Your conversion rates, if you're doing things right, conversion rate is going to climb up because that brand familiarity is going to make your life tremendously easier. So I expect the conversion rate to go up. Now, you combine that by looking at the site and saying, okay, well, there's all these hurdles that we put in the way of people actually placing an order. Let's remove those. That's going to be very powerful. So some of the metrics that I always like to say, before even looking at new versus returning, mobile versus desktop. What we see in the US, and I don't know, Ahmed, if you see something similar, mobile conversion rates are almost half of that for desktop. And if the site is doing well, it might be at 70%. So if you have a conversion rate for desktop at 1%, mobile sometimes is 0.7. Or if you are at 4% for desktop, you might be anywhere between 2 to 2.2 for mobile. So that's one battle, which is a fascinating battle. And then you have the new versus returning. And that could be you pull that data, and I don't know if I would call it a crying game because you end up with tears in your eyes, but you recognize the importance of those returning visitors because sometimes their conversion rate is 3x, 4x the new visitors. Although most of your investment is in the new visitors, correct? Need more visitors. But you look at the conversion rate and new visitors are converting at 1%, returning visitors are converting at 4%. Well, where should you spend your money? The problem is two things. Every marketer says we need to focus on the customer, correct? And every marketer says we need to focus on data. And we do a horrible job when it comes to both. Focus on the customer is not about acquiring customers, about finding better customer experience. Focusing on data means you need to segment and you need to kind of figure out exactly what's going on. And you need to know where you put your dollars, where you put your money where your mouth is. Focus on data. Data is telling you this. Spend money then on returning visitors.
Exactly.
Are you seeing similar numbers? I mean, I throw numbers based on the set that we deal with, but I wonder if in terms of returning versus new conversion rates, do you see something similar in terms of conversions?
So we normally see better conversion rates for returning customers. And sometimes it goes up to a 3x conversion rate. So someone who's actually a returning customer will convert, the likelihood for them converting into the next purchase is 3x that of a new customer. So those are things that we see. Someone asked about not using AI. How do we engage with returning customers without AI? You actually don't need AI to offer good experiences, customer experiences. Just by knowing your customers' basic data, any e-commerce platform will give you that kind of data. So just by knowing those kind of data, you can actually send emails. Emails, for example, still convert better. Still convert good. I mean, after all this time, sometimes people would say that email marketing is legacy. I don't think so. It's still working. We still see that people convert from emails and they still make a lot of sales from that. So sending right emails, personalized emails, making sure that you always communicate with your customers. Make sure that you have their phone numbers, you have their emails, communicate with them properly. Ask them for reviews, ask them for referrals, ask them for sharing on social media. So try to build that kind of connection with your customers.
Very nice. So one of the questions that came, like, how do you figure out that difference based on what you are saying that they convert faster? I'm going to throw it to Ahmed, and I always kind of piggyback on your answer. How can you tell that, returning visitors convert faster?
So it starts by segmenting them. Like, you need to identify first the segment of returning customers. And then through data, you can actually see how much they actually complete the purchases till the end. If you can measure this per segments, now you have figures to compare.
Yeah. And if you live in Google Analytics, by the way, those are two. Google Analytics is a very powerful tool. It could be, lots of people just throw Google Analytics script on their site and they're like, oh, I'm done. I'm like, no. You're not done. You installed the script. Done is a whole other story, especially now with GA4. That's a whole other animal. But let's talk about Universal Analytics. You need to define lots of segments. If you see the number of segments, usually we're dealing with anywhere between 30 to 50 segments. I mean, the data is there. You just need to pull it out. And the two segments that are very critical is the new versus returning. So that's a new segment. Actually, I think it might have been already defined. If it's not defined, you can just define it visitor type, returning visitor type, new. And you look at the data, it shows you a whole bunch of metrics, their average time on sites, their bounce rate, their exit rates, days to purchase as well. You can look at that in your e-commerce, and that really would help you, look at those segments, look at their behavior. But here's another question. Okay, great. You guys are telling me returning visitors are great, but they're only, 20-30% of my customer set. Shouldn't I be focused on the larger customer set and convincing those to convert as opposed to investing in the smaller segments?
So I'd like to refer to the 80-20 rule, which is most of your sales will come from those 20%. So actually, this is an actual figure. Most of retailers' revenues come from repeat customers and not from new acquisitions. Like, we speaking 60 to 70% of the revenues are coming from the repeat customers. The probability of that the next person who's going to get into your store, that this person has seen the brand before, has come to your store before, is actually higher than this person doesn't know that if this person doesn't know your brand at all. So actually, 30% might sound like a little number of people, but actually through subscriptions, through subscription-like model, which is basically they're coming back again, purchasing again, and so on, you magnify the value of those 30%.
Yeah. And I think, by the way, again, if you have those two segments, the new versus returning, conversion rate is an important metric to look at, average time on sites. There are some metrics that you can look at, but I would look at revenue per visits for those people who are returning. And you'll be shocked there, because you might discover that for new visitors, revenue per visit might be like, let's say $2-3. And for your returning visitors, you might discover that it's even higher, which is also fascinating, because returning visitors not only convert at much higher rates, guess what? They're willing to spend more money. So if you think about your revenue at the end as a retailer, it's a combination of, okay, number of visitors, conversion rate, average order value, correct? It's as simple as that. You multiply the three, here's my revenue. Well, guess what? In two of those metrics, they do better. They convert higher, they spend more money. So revenue per visit is just magnificent, which again goes back to, oh man, okay, if it's only 20%, 30% of my visitors, my next question is, well, shouldn't I focus on the 70 or 80%? My question is, well, how do I get more people to come back, correct? That becomes the critical piece. So I'm a retailer, I'm whatever type of, I keep on saying retailer, sorry, but I'm operating a website. Somebody comes into my site. How do I bring them back? How do I get them to be a returning visitor? What are some of the things that tell them, okay, I understand the value of those returning visitors, but what can I do?
So I think one of the things that can be done is just like how that store kept you coming back again and buying more and more, just because they understood the journey that you're going through. They understood that buying that product, you're probably looking to do more things in your house, and maybe you'll be interested in this set of products and so on. So a lot of things can be actually done. One of my favorite recent things that I've been seeing a lot is subscriptions. So instead of relying on transactions, you actually encourage your customers to subscribe to your products. And this actually works with FMCG products. By that, you lock your customers in fixed subscriptions every month. So you guarantee that those customers are going to come back again because they actually paid a subscription. This is one of the very meaningful, like very powerful tactics that we've been seeing recently. Other things is giving them a coupon for the next purchase. That's a very easy thing to do. So if they buy for the first time, you give them a coupon for the next time, and that coupon would expire next week. So sometimes they convert into that next purchase just because they want to use the coupon. And there's really a threshold. Sometimes you are naturally you're a one-time shopper in that brand, but then because you came there 3 times, you naturally evolve into becoming a repeat customer because you got used to going there. So sometimes you just need to force your customers through discounts to just make them get used to coming to your store. And when they do that, they naturally evolve into being repeat customers.
So one of the things I always say about online marketers, there are certain things that traditional retailers, traditional marketers have figured out for many, many years. And sometimes we have to reinvent the wheel. I'm like, no, it's been there for probably 40 years. Let's just take it from kind of the brick and mortar and let's implement it online. And guess what? Implementing it online, lots of times is easier, correct? Because you have the technology and it's just so less hassle.
So much easier.
Exactly. So I'll give an example from Cole. For those who live in the US, it's a retailer, apparel retailer, and they have decent discounts. Every time I go there, you'll shop. Okay, so you spend $200, $300. They give you Cole dollars, which is basically 20% of whatever you spent. I guess you spent $200. Here is 20% that you can spend on the next purchase, $40. But there's an expiration date, and it never fails. It just sits on the counter and I'm sitting there. I'm like, and then I look at my wife and I'm like, we got to go spend more money. Correct. It's just kind of the a cycle that just keeps on feeding itself, because every time I'm like, oh yeah, we got the discount. Oh, we have those Cole dollars. And I'm like, we don't need anything. Yeah. Might as well just stop by just in case, because you have, $20, $30, $40 to spend. And you never spend $20, $30, $40. You're always spending a lot more, but yeah, I got the discount. So using that in an online context could be very, very powerful. So, okay. So I've identified the segments. What are some of the things? Let's talk about the actual best practices. If I'm going to go out from this webinar, I was like, okay, you've convinced me. I'm already convinced about returning versus new. Okay, I'm going to focus on returning. Yes, I want to maximize. Give us top 3 to 5 things that really somebody can take them, implement them by the end of next week and say, you know what? Okay, this was absolutely amazing. Because really, Khaled, you should ask me this question before as we prep. No, I like to put people on the spot.
So give me your answer.
Oh gosh, no, this has never done to me before. But actually, I'll go back to the example. So I'll give one answer, but kind of figure out for those who converted, figure out how to give them coupons which are gonna expire within 2 weeks. Correct. Giving them that coupon code with an expiration date, and you can program that on Shopify. This is programmable, and add on top of that a couple of emails, 1 email a week after they place the order, correct? Telling them, hey, you have 1 more week, and then an email the day before. That's it. The minute you have that coupon, that's the hardest part in 2 emails. Guess what? You've created that. Oh, I am coming back to the site. So that's one. I'll give another example, which I'm sort of thinking, but somebody who converted, by the way, and people don't pay close attention to this, and I'm always amazed. It depends on the size of the order, but offering, $5, $10, $15, $20, correct, on your next purchase. But there's a catch over here. Shoot a quick Instagram video opening, like you're opening the order that came. So it helps me in my marketing, correct? Social media. Okay. Yeah. Just shoot it, post it, send us the link. You got the $20. And guess what? It's a coupon. So you're going to purchase more things from me. You're benefiting as a company, and they're benefiting because they're getting a discount. And I'm sure, by the way, you do this exercise, lock people up in a room, bring everybody in, lock them up for 3 hours. Guys, we need 5-10 10 new things that we can implement, and then let's rank them out. And there are no wrong answers. Just throw answers and let's just think through it. Ahmed, okay, now I gave you a chance to think, man. I gave two things off the top of my head.
So I'll give you another. So I'll give you a third example. So one of the things that can actually be done is referrals or social purchases. So I'm gonna give you the coupon if you bring a friend as well. So if the next purchase you come in with a friend or with a family member, your wife maybe or something, and they also made a purchase, now I'll give you the coupon discount. So sometimes this encourages you to not just come by yourself, but also bring in more people.
I love that. I love that. I guess I'm just kind of like, thinking through it. It's, yes, when it comes like, online, this is easy, but you can actually expand that, offline as well. Correct. I mean, it's not strictly online, offline. You can do it in both ways. So I'm reading the question over here. I guess that the behavior of returning visitors varies from market to market. In some markets, customers might be shopping every week, but in other markets like jewelry, they cannot expect the returning customers to come back very often. What is the best way to deal with this kind of returning customer? I'm gonna start here, as I'll let you, Ahmed, kind of think through this, but I think it really depends on what you're selling. Correct? You need to understand. The very first thing that you need to understand is like, well, how often do we expect people to come in and place an order? Furniture, jewelry, actually, even I'm just thinking about some of the companies that we work with, car parts. The only time I'm buying a car part, most of the time, unless I'm like, souping up my car, making it look really nice, is when something breaks. So maybe people are not going to be buying, like, because something broke, I need to buy it. But guess what? What Ahmed said about referral is very powerful, correct? Okay, so you bought the piece of jewelry, correct? But if you love it, guess what? Here's a coupon that you can send to friends, and whenever they're buying or something like that. So kind of think about that, and understanding that cycle. By the way, how often do people buy? I'll give an example from a company that we worked with a long time ago. Real estate, not e-commerce. People who buy a house usually are either there for a long time, or within 7 to 9 years, they start looking for other houses to buy. If you thought that the transaction just finished at okay, well, I finished buying the house, goodbye and good luck. No, if you're sophisticated about marketing, you can go a lot further and kind of understand and check, and there's complementary services that you offer. So there are certain things that you can do, but all this starts by understanding that buying cycle. And it's not only you or the customer who just placed an order. There could be referrals. There could be other things. So we can build on top of that. I know, Ahmed, some thoughts there.
So actually, one piece of business advice, I think you always need to consider, like you said, the buying cycle. And you always need to come up with new ideas to shorten that cycle or to have different offerings. So just like you said, in real estate, for example, you're not going to buy a house every year, but you can sell them facility management, you can sell them insurance, you can sell them different other services that are shorter in nature when it comes to buying cycle. So always think about those kind of things, or those kind of auxiliary services or products that you can sell that complement your original offering. So for example, car manufacturers, they sell you the car, but then they sell you also the service. Nespresso machine, they sell you the machine, but they sell you the capsule, the coffee capsules. So always think of something that's complementary, that's shorter in terms of cycle, and then make sure that those customers come back again for a different service that is complementary to the original offering.
Yeah,
that's just a business tip.
Yeah, and lots of times people ignore all these additional things, and I'm like, listen, if the customer needs it, they'll figure out a way to get it. Correct? If it's not from you, it's from another company. But these auxiliary offerings that support what you sell can be a really nice area for you to expand into. Kind of like, now that's more of a business decision, but sometimes it just really makes a lot of sense. I'll give 2 examples. We're working with a company that sells dog kennels. It's like, okay, like, but they're for highly anxious dogs. So they chew on kennels and they destroy them. So the kennels that this retailer sells are expensive. You're talking about $600 up to $1,200. Okay, so not everybody's buying that. You buy it once, correct? You're not buying this regularly, but you can think about the additional things. What are you going to put in the kennel? What are you going to, you already know that they have a dog. What can we do to complement that? And some of the stuff is through your own offering, sometimes through partnering up with other companies. But if you can figure out, going back to what Ahmed said, that subscription piece, it is so powerful. I'll give another example. We were working with skincare company, men's skincare. Men don't care about their skin, but if you can figure out the business model, you can figure out the business model. Well, in 2017, their annual revenue was $500,000. Two guys, one of them is not even full-time. In 2021, their annual revenue, because they figure out, we're going to do a monthly subscription and men are going to get the monthly box. Their annual subscription, throw a number. What do you think, Ahmed? 500,000, 2017, 4 years later.
I don't know. 2 million. I don't know.
$70 million.
70?
70. Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. Very powerful, correct? But they figured out the subscription piece. I changed them, correct? I mean, it's funny because we had a call with them and I'm like, dude, you were not even full-time. He's like, yeah, I wasn't even full-time. I was doing it at night. He's like, I have full-time right now. I'm like, yeah, you should be. Let's finish with this question, unless anybody has a question. I think Ras, kind of the educational piece. What is your recommendation in terms of learning track, courses, books for product managers who want to build products using AI, machine learning, or even new visitors versus returning visitors? What are some of the things that you would recommend reading?
So I'm not really a technical guy. I don't know what to where to learn about AI machine learning. It's not something that I'd be knowing. But as a product manager, I don't think you need to learn more about AI and ML because those are technology basically. But what you would read probably is books related to consumer behavior, how to understand your customers. In that regard, I would recommend a book called Hooked by Nirial. It's an amazing book. It's about how people get hooked to certain things, like certain behavior, certain habits. And it's about how to build that hooking cycle. So basically using incentives, rewards, and motivation, how you motivate customers to become hooked with your brand, hooked with your services. I highly recommend that book, Hooked. And it actually inspired how we built Gameball.
I love that. So there's, by the way, a new book that just came out, and I'm not going to mention the name of the book because I forgot it. I'm going to mention two books that I don't know the titles, but you can do a little bit of digging. One of them that just came out is about YouTube, and it's talking about YouTube algorithm and how the engineers there built the algorithm to get people hooked during the election cycle, the previous election cycle. So it was all built to bring people to the platform so they can make more money. Away from the politics, let's leave the politics outside. It is fascinating how the product was built to keep you on the platform, and kind of taking some of the lessons there and applying them in an e-commerce or whatever setting, because I think that can be very, very powerful. But my apologies, I don't remember the name, but I'll just mention also the other book, which I'm kind of looking back and I'm like, I know it's here because I keep on mentioning it, but I can't even see it right now. So it's an analytics book. It's an older book. It's by the Analytics Association. And the guy used to be a partner at Future Now, which it doesn't exist anymore. But they focus on consumer analytics, and it's an amazing analytics book talking about returning visitors and the metrics around that, and understanding customer churn for different size and how you calculate that and some of the behaviors that you do. But he focuses on the data side of things. But I'll finish with this. I'll agree with Ahmed. Listen, you can hire engineers, and there are engineers and there's technologies that will figure out the AI and the machine learning.
Exactly.
The tough part is not in the engineering. I mean, we have enough smart people in the engineering side of things. The other side of things, the product management and the marketing, that's a tough one, by the way. It's a lot harder because there are lots of advancements when it comes to AI and machine learning, and it's going to continue to evolve. But finding the smart people who sit on top of that is a lot harder, by the way, for me. That's kind of the piece. And I think naturally, at least that's my theory, that we tend to go towards the technical side of things because it's a very defined problem, correct? It's an algorithm and you're going to learn it, you're going to take a course, versus the product management or the marketing piece is a lot harder. And humans, whether we know it or not, we try and run away from harder problems. Figuring out the human mind is just absolutely magnificent, and it's so complicated to figure out. So focusing on that and figuring that out, I think, can be very, very powerful. Let me see. Awesome. I think with that, Ahmed, thank you so much for joining. By the way, we did a different format. Slides are really boring. Just conversation like that flowing, I find it to be a lot more interesting, especially when you have the right person. So thank you everybody for attending. There will be a webinar recording, so we'll share that. I think today's Wednesday. I am like, sometimes I'm in this cycle and I don't even remember the day, but by Monday you should receive a link to the webinar recording. Thank you everyone for attending. I hope that you walk away with useful information from this webinar. Ahmed, thank you again for taking the time to jump.
Thank you guys, thanks Khaled. Thank you so much for this.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.